Have you ever imagined a poor woman with cracked red hands from scrubbing floors for the rich, accidentally overhearing a cold-blooded poisoning plot aimed at her very own boss? 3 times the usual dose. By tonight he'll be gone, and no autopsy will ever trace it. That venomous whisper echoed from the luxurious living room, where the closest people were chuckling about dividing up the Mafia empire after the boss died of seemingly natural causes. She, Grace, just the invisible maid in their eyes, should have stayed silent, turned away to protect her own life and the daughter waiting for food in her rundown apartment. But she did the unthinkable. Rushed out, grabbed the arm of Chicago's most powerful man, yanked him into the dark pantry, and whispered, "They're going to kill you right now." From that moment, everything exploded. Deadly chases through the cutting winds of a Chicago night, brutal bare-knuckle fights soaked in blood, and a mad, burning love born from the ashes of betrayal, between the cold Mafia boss and the destitute woman who saved his life. Will that love be strong enough to overcome the hell hunting them down? Join me as we dive into this chilling and deeply emotional story right now. Before we dive into this chilling and mysterious story, please remember to subscribe to the channel Alex Truths and like this video. Every subscription, like, and share from you is a huge spiritual gift and an incredibly profound source of motivation for the channel's growth, so we can continue bringing wonderful videos every day to everyone. There would be no greater joy than receiving your love and support through the comments you leave right below this video. Comments sharing your emotions, or telling us which province or city you're living and working in while listening to this story. All right, let's continue together and immerse ourselves in this amazing, captivating story that's filled with deep emotions. My name is Grace Thompson, and on that bitter October evening in 2025, the Chicago wind cut through my thin coat like a knife as I hurried up the service elevator to the penthouse. I was 32 years old, but I felt 60. Bones aching from too many nights on cold floors, stomach hollow from skipping meals so my daughter Mia could eat. My hands were red and cracked from scrubbing marble floors and polishing silver that I could never dream of owning. I was the invisible housekeeper in Vincent Moretti's Gold Coast Palace in the Sky, the one who cleaned up after parties that cost more than I'd earn in 10 lifetimes. I had just finished wiping down the kitchen island when I heard voices from the living room, low, urgent, venomous. Something in the tone made my blood freeze. I crept closer, staying in the shadows of the hallway, and peered through the half-open door. Isabella Moretti, Vincent's beautiful wife, sat on the leather couch with her legs crossed, sipping from a crystal glass. Beside her was Luca, Vincent's younger cousin, the one with the charming smile that never reached his eyes. They thought they were alone. "He came back early from the sit-down," Isabella whispered, her voice sharp as broken glass. "I already put 3 times the dose in his espresso this morning. By tonight, he'll be gone, and no autopsy will ever trace it." Luca leaned forward, smirling. "Good. Once Vincent's out of the way, the old guards will fall in line behind me. The North Side rackets, the riverfront casinos, everything will be ours." My heart slammed against my ribs. They were talking about murder, about poisoning the man whose home I cleaned every day. The man who, without ever saying a word, had quietly paid for half of Mia's medical treatments 2 years ago when we were drowning in hospital bills. I didn't know it was him then, just an anonymous donor through a foundation. I only pieced it together last month when I found the paperwork. I backed away, breath shallow, when the private elevator dinged softly. Vincent was home. He stepped into the foyer looking exhausted, tall, fair-skinned, dark hair slightly graying at the temples, the kind of handsome that made people look twice. His tailored coat hung open, and he loosened his tie as he walked. He didn't see me at first. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was the memory of Mia almost dying. Maybe it was knowing that no one else would warn him. I darted out from the hallway, grabbed his arm, and yanked him hard into the walk-in pantry, pulling the door almost shut behind us. He stiffened, hand instinctively going for the gun I knew he carried under his coat. I pressed my trembling finger to my lips, eyes wide, shaking my head frantically. "Please," I whispered, voice barely audible. "Don't make a sound. They'll kill you right now." His storm gray eyes locked on mine, shock and confusion flashing across his face. He was used to giving orders, not taking them from the woman who scrubbed his floors. But something in my expression, the raw terror, made him freeze. He nodded once, slowly. Through the narrow gap in the door, we watched. Isabella stood, smoothing her dress. He should be feeling it by now. Dizziness, chest pain. He'll think it's stress. By morning, it'll look like a heart attack. Luca laughed quietly. Perfect. And the widow will mourn so beautifully. Vincent's jaw tightened. I felt the rage radiating off him like heat, but beneath it, something deeper. Betrayal carving into him like acid. His hand clenched into a fist at his side, knuckles white. I saw the storm building inside him. Guilt for trusting them. Remorse for the years he'd protected Luca like a brother. Violent conflict tearing at the walls he'd built around his heart. I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Poverty had taught me to be small, to stay quiet, to survive. But tonight, survival meant speaking up for a man who lived in a world I couldn't even imagine. The voices moved closer. Footsteps on marble. I pressed myself against Vincent's side without thinking, trying to make us smaller in the dark space. He smelled of expensive cologne and cold night air. His arm came around me instinctively, protective even now. I felt his heartbeat, fast, furious. Isabella paused just outside the pantry door. "Did you hear something?" My lungs burned. I couldn't breathe. Claw's voice, dismissive. "Probably the maid. She's still here somewhere." The maid. That's all I was to them. Invisible. After an eternity, they moved away. I heard the elevator again, going down this time. They were leaving. Vincent eased the door open a crack, checked the living room, then pulled me out. His face was stone, but his eyes, God, his eyes were full of something raw and bleeding. "We have to go," I whispered, voice cracking. "Now, before they come back." He stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. "Why are you doing this?" I swallowed, tears threatening. "Because someone has to. And because you saved my daughter once. I owe you." Something shifted in his expression. Guilt, gratitude, a fierce protectiveness that made my chest ache. He nodded once. We slipped out the service exit to the staff parking garage. My old Chevy Malibu sat in the corner, rust eating at the fenders, one headlight cracked. I'd been living in it some nights when the shelter was full. As we reached the car, headlights flared at the garage entrance. 2 black SUVs blocked the ramp. Luca's men. Vincent swore under his breath and pulled me behind a concrete pillar. 3 armed guys stepped out, scanning. My knees buckled. This was it. We were trapped. Vincent's hand tightened on mine. His voice was low, steady, but I heard the war inside him. "Stay behind me." One of the men called out, "Boss said Mr. Moretti came home early. Check the garage." They started walking our way. Vincent stepped out into the open, hands raised but posture screaming power. "Looking for me, boys?" The lead guy smirked. "Luca says you're not feeling well. Wants us to take you home." Vincent's smile was ice. "Tell Luca if he wants me, he comes himself." The tension snapped. One thug reached for his gun. Vincent moved like lightning, disarming the first, slamming the second against a car hood, the third backing off when he saw the look in Vincent's eyes. No shots fired, just raw, controlled power. He dragged me to my car, shoved me into the passenger seat, and took the wheel. The engine coughed twice before starting. We peeled out the back exit as the SUVs spun around behind us. I was shaking uncontrollably now. Shock, fear, the sudden violent shift from my quiet, hopeless life into this storm. Vincent glanced at me, jaw tight. "You're bleeding." I looked down, a small cut on my arm from the scuffle. It was nothing compared to the terror inside me. He reached over, pressed his handkerchief against it. Silk, monogrammed, worth more than my weekly pay. "I'm sorry you got dragged into this." I laughed, a broken sound. "I dragged you into the pantry." His eyes met mine in the dim dashboard light. Something fierce and overwhelming passed between us. Gratitude, guilt, a spark neither of us expected. The city blurred past, sirens in the distance, rival territory ahead. And in that rattling old car, fleeing for our lives, I felt the first crack in the wall around my heart. This man, this dangerous, powerful, tormented man, was risking everything to protect me now. I didn't know where we were going. I only knew that for the first time in years, I wasn't alone in the dark. And that scared me almost as much as the poison and the guns. The Chevy Malibu rattled through the dark streets of Chicago, the engine coughing like it was as tired as I was. October wind howled outside, sneaking through the cracked window seals and biting at my thin frame. I hugged my arms around myself, trying to stop the shaking, but it wasn't just the cold. It was everything. The pantry, the voices, the guns in the garage, the way Vincent Moretti had fought those men with a calm fury that made my stomach twist. Vincent drove with one hand on the wheel, the other pressed to his side where his ribs had taken a hit during the scuffle. His fair-skinned face was tight, jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscle jumping. City lights flashed across his features, sharp, handsome, tormented. Every few blocks he checked the rearview mirror, eyes scanning for headlights that stayed too close. I sat hunched in the passenger seat, my threadbare coat pulled tight. My shoes, secondhand sneakers with holes in the soles, were soaked from the rain earlier. I hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, a half-eaten granola bar I'd found in the penthouse staff fridge. My body felt light, hollow, like it might float away if the fear didn't anchor it down. "Where are we going?" I finally whispered, voice small and timid. I hated how weak I sounded, but speaking to him, Vincent Moretti, the man whose world I only ever glimpsed from the edges, made me feel smaller than usual. He glanced at me, gray eyes softening for a fraction of a second before hardening again. "Somewhere they won't look right away. A safe house on the south side." I nodded, even though I didn't understand. Safe house. The words felt foreign, like something from a movie. My life had been shelters, overdue rent notices, hospital waiting rooms where I begged for payment plans. Safety was a locked door and hoping the heat stayed on another night. But as the silence stretched, the memory of those voices in the living room clawed its way back. I couldn't stop hearing them. It had happened so fast. After I pulled him into the pantry, we stood pressed together in the dark, the scent of expensive leather from his coat mixing with the faint lemon cleaner I used on the shelves. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure Isabella and Luca would hear it. Through the narrow slats in the louvered door, I watched them. Isabella paced slowly in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city skyline glittering behind her like diamonds she already owned. Her silk dress caught the light each time she turned. Elegant, expensive, cruel. Claw lunged on the white leather sectional, swirling amber liquid in a heavy crystal tumbler. "He's been complaining about chest pain for weeks," he said, voice low and satisfied. "The doctors will say stress, high blood pressure, too much rich food, too many late nights, natural causes." Isabella stopped pacing. "I put 3 times the usual amount in his espresso this morning. By tonight, he'll collapse. Tomorrow, I'll be the grieving widow planning a beautiful funeral." My knees nearly gave out. I felt Vincent go rigid beside me, his breath catching. His hand found my wrist in the dark, not to hurt, but to steady himself. I could feel the tremor running through him. Luca laughed softly. And once the old man's allies see me stepping up, they'll fall in line. The riverfront deals, the north side protection money, it'll all be mine. Ours. Isabella's smile was cold. We've waited long enough. I wanted to scream, to burst out and confront them, but terror glued my feet to the floor. I'd spent years being invisible, scrubbing their floors, washing their dishes, folding laundry that cost more than my rent. They never saw me. And now they were planning to kill the man whose home I cleaned, the man who had quietly saved my daughter's life. Vincent's grip tightened on my wrist, not painful, but desperate. I looked up at him in the dimness. His eyes were wide, stormy, filled with something that tore at my heart. Raw betrayal, gnawing guilt for ever trusting them, violent remorse that he hadn't seen it sooner. I saw the war inside him, the powerful boss who commanded fear, now reduced to hiding in a pantry, protected by the woman he barely knew existed. A wave of dizziness hit me. The air felt too thick, my vision blurred at the edges. I swayed, and Vincent's arm slid around my waist to keep me upright. The warmth of him, solid, strong, cut through the cold that lived in my bones from too many freezing nights. For a moment, I let myself lean into it, even as shame burned my cheeks. I didn't deserve to be this close to him. Then Isabella's voice again, closer to the pantry door. "Did you hear something?" I stopped breathing. Luca stood. "Probably nothing, but let's check the garage. If he's home early, we should make sure he drinks his nightcap." Their footsteps moved away. The elevator dinged. Silence. Vincent eased the door open, pulling me out into the suddenly too bright living room. The opulence hit me like a slap. Marble floors I'd polished that morning, artwork worth millions, furniture I dusted but never sat on. All of it built on power and blood money, and now poisoned by the people closest to him. His face was pale, but his eyes burned. "You heard everything." It wasn't a question. I nodded, throat tight. He ran a hand through his dark hair, pacing once, twice. "My wife, my cousin, the two people His voice cracked. He stopped, back to me, shoulders rigid. I saw the torment ripping through him. The man who had everything, now realizing he had nothing real. I took a hesitant step forward. "Mr. Moretti, Vincent, I'm so sorry." He turned, and the look he gave me, it wasn't gratitude yet. It was shock, disbelief, and something deeper, something that made my chest ache, like he was seeing me, really seeing me for the first time. "Why?" he asked, voice rough. "Why risk this for me?" I looked down at my cracked hands. "Because no one deserves that. And because you saved Mia. You didn't have to, but you did." His expression fractured. Guilt, remorse, a fierce wave of protectiveness that stole my breath. In that moment, something shifted inside him, an overwhelming surge, sudden and burning. I saw it in his eyes, the first spark of a love that would consume him, born from the ashes of betrayal and the quiet courage of a woman he'd overlooked. But before he could speak, headlights swept across the windows, more vehicles pulling into the private garage below. "They're back," he said, voice low and dangerous, "with reinforcements." We ran. Down the service stairs, my legs burning, lungs screaming. At the garage level, we burst through the door just as 4 more men stepped out of an SUV, Luca's soldiers. Vincent didn't hesitate. He shoved me behind a concrete support beam. "Stay down." The lead man smirked. "Boss wants a word, Vince. Says you're not looking so good." Vincent stepped forward, hands open, but body coiled. "Tell Luca if he wants to talk, he can face me like a man." Words flew, threats, accusations. Then one thug lunged. Vincent moved faster than I thought possible, sidestepping, grabbing an arm, twisting until the man dropped to his knees with a grunt. Another swung. Vincent blocked, drove an elbow into ribs. Controlled, precise. No shots, just raw power reminding them who he was. I pressed against the cold concrete, heart in my throat, tears blurring my vision. This was my fault. I'd dragged him into the open. If he got hurt... He disarmed the last one, breathing hard, and turned to me. "Grace, run!" We sprinted to my car. He slid behind the wheel again as I scrambled in. Tires screeched as we shot up the ramp, an SUV giving chase. Rain started falling hard, blurring the windshield. Vincent drove like he owned the streets, which, in a way, he did. He cut through alleys, ran red lights, lost them near the river. Only then did he pull over under a viaduct, hands gripping the wheel until his knuckles went white. Silence fell, heavy and thick. I was crying quietly now, shock, fear, the unfairness of it all crashing over me. My life had been one long string of unfair. Eviction notices, hospital debts, nights wondering if Mia and I would eat, and now this. Vincent looked at me, eyes fierce and tormented. "I'm getting you out of this," he said, voice low, intense. I swear it. The way he said it, the burning promise in his gaze, sent something dangerous and warm spiraling through my numb heart. I didn't know it yet, but in that rain-soaked car, hiding from men who wanted him dead, Vincent Moretti had already begun to fall, hard, irrevocably, passionately, for the broken woman who had saved his life when no one else would. And that terrified me more than the poison ever could. The rain hammered the windshield like angry fists as Vincent sped through the slick streets of Chicago, the old Chevy Malibu hydroplaning on every puddle. October 2025 had turned vicious overnight, wind howling off Lake Michigan, carrying the kind of cold that seeped into bones and never left. My bones. Thin, brittle from years of not enough food, not enough rest, not enough anything. I sat curled against the passenger door, arms wrapped around my knees, trying to make myself smaller. The seatbelt cut into my collarbone where the coat had worn through. My stomach twisted with hunger and terror in equal measure. I hadn't eaten properly in days, just scraps from the penthouse kitchen when no one was looking. A stale bagel here, half a sandwich there. Mia had needed new shoes for school, and the choice had been easy, her feet or my meal. Vincent's hands gripped the wheel so tightly I could see the whites of his knuckles, even in the dim glow of the dashboard. His expensive wool coat was rumpled now, the silk lining torn from the garage fight. A faint smear of blood stained his white shirt cuff. His or one of the men's, I couldn't tell. He kept checking the mirrors, jaw locked, eyes burning with a fury that scared me almost as much as the chase. "They're still back there," he said quietly, voice rough like gravel. 2 sets of headlights had been weaving through traffic behind us since we left the Gold Coast. I twisted to look. Black SUVs, tinted windows, the kind that screamed money and menace. Luca's men. My breath hitched. What do they want? He didn't answer right away, just took a sharp turn down a narrow alley, tires screeching, trash cans clattering as we clipped one. "To finish what Isabella started." The words landed like stones in my empty stomach. Poison. Murder. The man beside me, the man whose marble floors I'd scrubbed on my hands and knees, was meant to be dead by morning, and now I was running with him. Another wave of dizziness washed over me. The world tilted. I pressed my forehead to the cool window, trying to steady the spinning. Low blood sugar, exhaustion, shock, it all blurred together. My reflection stared back, hollow cheeks, dark circles under my eyes, lips cracked from biting them too hard. I looked like a ghost. I felt like one. Vincent noticed. Of course he did. "When did you last eat?" I hesitated, ashamed. "Yesterday, maybe?" He swore under his breath, not at me, but at the unfairness of it. I heard the torment in that single word. guilt for not seeing me sooner, remorse for the life I'd lived under his roof while he lived in luxury. Violent conflict tearing at the heart of a man who commanded empires, but couldn't protect the woman who'd just saved him. "Hold on," he said. He yanked the wheel hard, cutting across 3 lanes into oncoming traffic. Horns blared. I cried out, clutching the door handle. An SUV tried to follow and clipped a taxi, spinning out. The second kept coming. We shot down a side street into a neighborhood I barely recognized. Boarded windows, flickering streetlights, chain-link fences rattling in the wind. Vincent killed the headlights and pulled into a dark loading dock behind an abandoned warehouse. He cut the engine. Silence rushed in, broken only by rain drumming on the roof and our ragged breathing. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then headlights swept past the alley entrance, slow, searching. The remaining SUV. My heart stopped. Vincent's hand found mine in the darkness, fingers intertwining with a gentleness that didn't match the power I'd seen him wield. His palm was warm, calloused in places I hadn't expected. "Stay quiet," he whispered. We waited. The SUV idled at the corner, engine rumbling like a predator. I could feel Vincent's pulse racing through his grip, fast, furious, protective. Minutes dragged like hours. Finally, the SUV moved on. Vincent exhaled slowly. "They'll circle back. We can't stay here." He started the car again, pulling out carefully. But 2 blocks later, there they were, waiting at a red light, blocking the intersection. Vincent's curse was soft but lethal. He threw the car into reverse, but another vehicle appeared behind us. Trapped. 3 men stepped out of the lead SUV, silhouettes against the rain-slick street. Big, armed, moving with purpose. Vincent unbuckled his seatbelt. "Lock the doors behind me. If I don't come back in 2 minutes, drive. Don't look back." "No." The word escaped before I could stop it, small and terrified. He looked at me then, really looked. Rain streaked the windows, blurring the world outside, but inside the car, his gray eyes were clear, fierce, tormented. Something passed between us, raw, electric, impossible. The first true spark of the overwhelming love that would soon consume him. I saw it flare in his gaze, gratitude twisting into devotion, protectiveness burning into passion. A man who had everything suddenly realizing the only thing he couldn't live without was the fragile woman beside him. "I'm not leaving you," he said, voice low and intense. "Not ever." Then he was out in the rain. I watched through the windshield, heart in my throat. The men approached. Words were exchanged, sharp, threatening. One reached inside his coat. Vincent moved like a storm. He grabbed the man's arm, twisted, sent him stumbling into the second. The third lunged. Vincent sidestepped, drove a knee into ribs, then an elbow to the jaw. Controlled, precise. No shots fired, just sheer dominance reminding them who ruled these streets. One tried to run back to the SUV. Vincent caught him by the collar, slammed him against the hood. "Tell Luca," he growled, loud enough for me to hear through the glass. "If he comes for her again, I burn everything he loves to the ground." The man nodded frantically. Vincent let him go. The 3 scrambled back to their vehicles and peeled away, leaving rubber and fear behind. He returned soaked, breathing hard, water dripping from his dark hair. He slid into the driver's seat and just sat there a moment, head bowed, hands trembling, not from cold, but from the war inside him. I reached out without thinking, touching his arm. "You're bleeding." A cut above his eyebrow, not deep, but bright against his fair skin. He looked at my hand on his sleeve, thin fingers, cracked nails, trembling, and something broke open in his expression. Guilt crashed over him like the rain outside. Remorse for every day he'd walked past me without seeing. Violent inner conflict between the ruthless boss he'd been and the man waking up to the worth of one overlooked soul. "I should have known," he said quietly, "about all of it, about you." Tears filled my eyes. I tried to pull my hand back, ashamed of my poverty laid so bare beside his power. but he caught it, held it gently. "You're freezing," he murmured. He shrugged out of his ruined wool coat, Italian, worth more than my car, and draped it over my shoulders. It swallowed me, heavy with the scent of rain and his cologne. Warmth I hadn't felt in years. I started crying then, quiet, helpless tears. For the unfairness of my life, evictions, empty cupboards, nights in the car when the shelter was full, Mia's scared face when the lights went out, for the absurdity of sitting here now, wrapped in a Mafia boss's coat while he bled for me. Vincent watched me break, and I saw his heart tear wider. He reached over slowly, as if I might shatter, and brushed a tear from my cheek with his thumb. "I'm getting you somewhere safe," he promised again, voice thick with emotion, and warm, and fed. Tonight. He pulled back onto the street, driving carefully now, avoiding main roads. We passed glittering high-rises where people like him lived, then deeper into neighborhoods where people like me barely survived. At a red light, a homeless man shuffled past with a shopping cart. I saw myself in him, only a few bad months away. Vincent noticed too. His jaw tightened. The light changed. He drove on. Half an hour later, he pulled into an underground garage beneath a nondescript brick building in Little Italy. Not flashy, but secure. His safe house. He came around to my door, opened it, offered his hand. I took it, legs unsteady. The world swayed. He caught me before I fell, arms strong around my waist. "Easy," he whispered. "I've got you." Inside, the apartment was simple but clean. Leather furniture, dark wood, a kitchen I could never have dreamed of. Warm air enveloped me like an embrace. He led me to the couch, sat me down, disappeared briefly. Returned with a thick blanket, a bowl of steaming soup, real soup, with chunks of chicken and vegetables, and a glass of water. "Eat," he said softly. I stared at it, hands shaking too hard to hold the spoon. He knelt in front of me, took the spoon himself, and fed me the first bite. Gentle, patient, like I was something precious. The warmth spread through my empty body, and the tears came harder. Between bites, he spoke quietly, about how he'd bought this place years ago for emergencies, how no one knew about it except one trusted soldier who'd never betray him. About how tomorrow he'd figure out the next move. But mostly he just watched me eat, eyes fierce with new purpose. The love growing inside him, sudden, overwhelming, passionate beyond reason, shone clear now. A man who'd built an empire on fear, discovering the only thing worth protecting was one starving, freezing woman who'd risked everything for his life. When the bowl was empty, he set it aside and simply held my hands, warming them between his. I looked up at him, tall, powerful, tormented, beautiful in his pain, and felt something shift inside my own shattered heart. Suspicion melting into trust, fear giving way to wonder. For the first time in years, I wasn't alone. And that realization, that a man like Vincent Moretti could look at a woman like me with such fierce devotion, terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, something new and impossible began to burn. The safe house in Little Italy felt like stepping into another world. Warm light from soft lamps bathed the rooms in gold. Hardwood floors gleamed under thick rugs, and the air smelled faintly of leather and cedar. Clean, expensive, safe. I stood just inside the door, dripping rainwater onto the mat, Vincent's heavy wool coat still wrapped around my shoulders like a shield. My worn sneakers left muddy prints that made me cringe with shame. Vincent locked the door behind us. 3 deadbolts, a keypad, a steel bar across the frame. Then he turned, rain still clinging to his dark hair, and looked at me as though he was afraid I might vanish. "You're safe here," he said quietly. "No one knows about this place except me." I nodded, but my legs trembled so badly I had to lean against the wall. The soup he'd fed me earlier sat warm in my stomach, but exhaustion and shock were winning. My vision swam again, black spots dancing at the edges. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, knees drawn up, head resting on them. Vincent was beside me in an instant, kneeling despite the cut on his forehead still seeping. "Grace." His voice was gentle, but I heard the storm beneath it, guilt tearing at him for every second I'd suffered unseen. Remorse for the empire he'd built while people like me scraped by in its shadows. Violent conflict between the ruthless man he'd been and the one waking to the fierce, burning love that had taken root the moment I pulled him into that pantry. "I'm okay," I whispered, timid and polite even now. Just tired. He didn't believe me. I saw it in the way his jaw tightened. He slipped one arm beneath my knees, the other behind my back, and lifted me as though I weighed nothing. I was too stunned to protest. No one had carried me since I was a child. My thin frame, bones sharp under pale skin from too many skipped meals, felt fragile in his strong arms. He carried me to a bedroom down the hall. Dark wood furniture, crisp white linens, a bed so large and soft-looking it seemed obscene compared to the thin mattress on the floor I shared with Mia some nights when the apartment heat failed. He set me down gently on the edge, then disappeared, returning with towels, a first aid kit, and a thick sweater from a drawer. "Dry off, change. I'll be in the kitchen." I obeyed like a child, hands shaking as I peeled off my soaked clothes. The sweater swallowed me, soft cashmere, probably worth more than 3 months of my wages. It smelled like him. I pressed the sleeve to my face for a second, breathing him in, then hated myself for it. When I padded barefoot into the kitchen, he was at the counter making coffee. Real coffee, rich and aromatic. A plate of sandwiches sat beside it, thick slices of roast beef, cheese, fresh bread. My mouth watered painfully. "Eat," he said without turning. "Please." I sat at the island, timidly taking one. The first bite brought tears to my eyes again. Real food, not scraps, not canned soup thinned with water. Vincent watched me, leaning against the opposite counter, arms crossed. His shirt was unbuttoned at the collar now, sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms marked with old scars. The cut above his eye had stopped bleeding, but a bruise was forming. We ate in silence for a while, the only sound the rain against the windows and the soft tick of a wall clock. Then his phone buzzed on the counter, his personal one, the one he'd kept hidden. He glanced at the screen and his face darkened. "Luca," he said, trying to locate me. My heart lurched. How? Everything's trackable these days. His voice was flat, but I saw the torment flare again. Phone, watch, even the car if it had GPS. He picked up the phone, stared at it a long moment, then looked at me. "We have to erase the trail, completely, or they'll find us by morning." I didn't understand at first. Then he held out his hand. "Phone first, yours too." I fumbled in my coat pocket for my ancient flip phone, the one with the cracked screen I'd bought secondhand 2 years ago. Minutes were prepaid, texts rare because everyone cost money I didn't have. I handed it over without protest. He took it gently, then his own sleek smartphone, black, expensive, the kind with cameras and apps I'd only seen in advertisements. He set both on the counter. Next, he unclasped his watch, heavy gold, Swiss, the kind of heirloom that could pay a year's rent. A small diamond glinted on the face. He laid it beside the phones. Then he opened a drawer and pulled out a small velvet pouch. From it, he drew a silver chain with a medal, St. Christopher, patron of travelers. His mother's, he said quietly. She'd given it to him the day he took over the family. He stared at it a long moment, thumb rubbing the worn edge, eyes distant with pain. I saw the war inside him, the need to sever every tie they could trace versus the sentimental weight of the few things that grounded him to something good. He placed the medal with the rest. We'll destroy the electronics, he said. Bury the metal. They'll think we were robbed, or worse. My throat tightened. The metal, are you sure? His eyes met mine, gray, fierce, already burning with that impossible love. Nothing they can use to find you is worth keeping. You, not us, you. The word hung between us, heavy with meaning. He wrapped everything in a thick plastic bag, then looked at me. We have to go out. There's a place on the south side, an industrial yard. No cameras. We'll do it there. I nodded, fear rising again. Out meant danger. He saw it. I won't let anything happen to you. We left 20 minutes later. He'd changed into dark jeans and a black hoodie, clothes from a closet I hadn't known existed. Simple, but even casual, he looked powerful. I kept his cashmere sweater and added one of his leather jackets over it. It hung to my knees. The rain had eased to a cold mist. We took a different car from the underground garage, a nondescript gray sedan, keys hanging on a hook labeled clean. No GPS, he said. We drove south, through neighborhoods that grew rougher, past boarded windows and flickering signs. My side of the city, the one I knew too well. Halfway there, headlights appeared behind us again, persistent, too close. Vincent's hands tightened on the wheel. Hold on. He accelerated, taking sudden turns, cutting through alleys I didn't know existed. The pursuing car stayed with us. At a deserted intersection near the old stockyards, they made their move, pulling alongside, trying to force us off the road. Vincent braked hard, spun the wheel. We skidded into a vacant lot surrounded by chain-link fence. The other car followed. 4 men climbed out, Luca's soldiers, faces I vaguely recognized from the penthouse. Vincent killed the engine and turned to me. Stay in the car, lock it. No, my voice cracked. He cupped my cheek briefly, thumb brushing my skin with aching tenderness. Trust me. Then he was out, door slamming. I watched through fogged glass, heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. The men spread out. Words were shouted, threats, demands for Vincent to come quietly. He stood in the mist, hands open, posture calm but radiating menace. You boys lost? The leader stepped forward. Luca says bring you in, dead or breathing, he don't care anymore. Vincent's smile was cold. Tell Luca he'll have to do his own dirty work. It happened fast. One man rushed him. Vincent sidestepped, grabbed the arm, used momentum to send the guy sprawling into a puddle. Another swung. Vincent blocked, countered with a sharp elbow to the ribs that dropped the man gasping. The third hesitated. The fourth tried to circle toward the car, toward me. Vincent saw it. Something primal unleashed. He intercepted the man, slamming him against the fence hard enough to rattle the metal. Touch her and you don't walk away. The fight ended quickly after that. The 4 retreated to their car, bruised and limping, speeding off with threats shouted into the mist. Vincent returned, breathing hard, a new split in his lip. He slid behind the wheel and just sat a moment, head bowed. I reached out, touched his arm timidly. You're hurt again. He looked at me then, eyes fierce and wet with unshed emotion. The love, passionate, overwhelming, burning, was written plain now. A man who'd never needed anyone, discovering he would burn the city down for one woman. I'd take 100 more, he said roughly, if it keeps you safe. We drove the last miles in silence. The industrial yard was a graveyard of rusted machinery and abandoned rail cars. Vincent parked deep in the shadows. He took a hammer from the trunk, heavy, industrial. One by one, he destroyed the phones, screens shattering, circuits crumbling. The watch face cracked under the blows. I flinched at each impact, thinking of the life they represented. Then the metal. He held it a long moment, thumb tracing the saint's face one last time. Guilt and remorse tore across his features, letting go of the last piece of his mother, to protect me. He dug a shallow hole with the hammer claw and buried it, covering it with gravel. When he stood, rain mist clinging to his hair, he looked at me, wrapped in his jacket 3 sizes too big, thin shoulders hunched against the cold, and something inside him shattered completely. He crossed the space between us in 2 strides and pulled me into his arms. I stiffened at first, shock, unworthiness, then melted against him, face pressed to his chest. He was warm, solid, shaking with the intensity of what he felt. "I'm sorry," he whispered into my hair, "for every day you went hungry while I had everything, for every cold night, for not seeing you." Tears soaked his shirt. My own torment spilled out, the unfairness of a world that let children go to bed hungry while others threw parties that cost fortunes, the humiliation of food bank lines and shut-off notices, the exhaustion of working 2 jobs and still falling behind. He held me tighter, as if he could absorb it all. When we finally pulled apart, his hands framed my face gently. "No one touches you again," he vowed. "Not poverty, not Luca, not anyone." The drive back was quiet, but the air between us crackled with new electricity. Suspicion had burned away. In its place, something terrifying and beautiful. Back in the safe house, he ran a hot bath, something I hadn't had in years. Bubbles, real towels, warmth that soaked into my aching bones. He left me alone, but stood guard outside the door. Later, wrapped in another of his sweaters, hair damp, I found him in the living room staring out at the city lights. He turned when I entered, eyes softening. Clean, fed, warm for the first time in forever, I looked at him, this powerful, dangerous, tormented man who had just erased every trace of his old life to protect mine, and felt my heart crack wide open. The trail was gone, but something new, fierce and impossible, had begun to burn between us in the darkness. The morning light crept through heavy curtains in the safe house, soft and gray like the October sky outside. I woke slowly on the guest bed, sheets smoother than anything I'd ever slept on, pillow cradling my head instead of a folded coat. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. Then memory crashed back. The pantry, the poison, the chase, Vincent's arms carrying me. I sat up too fast. The room tilted, dizziness sweeping over me like a wave. My body, thin, malnourished, worn from years of scraping by, protested the sudden movement. I pressed a hand to my forehead, waiting for the spinning to stop. Hunger gnawed again, sharper now that I'd tasted real food last night. Vincent was already awake. I heard him in the kitchen, quiet movements, the low hiss of a coffee maker. I padded down the hall in his oversized cashmere sweater and borrowed socks, feeling small and out of place in this clean, warm space. He stood at the stove, back to me, stirring something in a pan. Eggs, bacon, the smells wrapped around me like a dream. He'd changed into a simple black t-shirt and jeans, but even casual, he carried power in the set of his shoulders, the controlled grace of every motion. He turned when he heard me, gray eyes softening instantly. "Morning. How'd you sleep?" "Better than in a long time," I said softly, timidly. My voice always came out smaller around him, like I was afraid of taking up too much space. He nodded, but I saw the torment flicker across his face, gnawing remorse that I'd ever had to sleep badly at all. He plated the food and set it on the small kitchen table, with orange juice in real glass, not plastic. "Eat," he said gently. "You need strength." I sat, hands trembling as I picked up the fork. The first bite of eggs, fluffy, seasoned just right, brought tears to my eyes again. I tried to hide them, but he saw. "Grace." His voice was low, rough with emotion. He pulled a chair close and sat, elbows on knees, watching me with that burning intensity that made my chest ache. Tell me what you need. Anything. I shook my head, swallowing hard. You've already done too much. No, the word was fierce. I've done nothing, not for years. Silence fell, thick with everything unsaid. Outside, a car backfired. I jumped, heart slamming. Vincent was on his feet in an instant, moving to the window, peering through the blinds. His body coiled like a spring. Just a delivery truck, he said after a moment, but tension lingered in his shoulders. He returned to the table but didn't sit. We can't stay here long. Luca will turn over every stone. My stomach dropped. Where will we go? He hesitated. Somewhere no one would ever look for me. I didn't understand until an hour later when he handed me a faded baseball cap and an old hoodie from the closet. Put these on. Keep your head down. We left the safe house through a back exit, taking the stairs instead of the elevator. My legs burned by the 10th floor, weak from poor nutrition, from nights spent walking miles because bus fare was for Mia's lunch. Vincent noticed, of course. Halfway down, he simply scooped me up again, carrying me the rest of the way without a word. I buried my face in his shoulder, shame and wonder warring inside me. We took another car, this one a plain blue pickup truck parked on the street. He drove north, then west, weaving through neighborhoods until the buildings grew smaller, closer together, lights dimmer. Uptown, my neighborhood. The one I'd been too ashamed to tell him about. He pulled up outside a tired 6-flat building with peeling paint and buzzing entry lights. My building. I stared, confused, fearful. Why here? Because Luca will search high-end places first. Hotels, other safe houses, my clubs. He'll never think I'd hide in a place like this. A place like this. The words stung even though he didn't mean them to. This was my life. Overdue rent notices taped to doors, hallways that smelled of old cooking and despair, neighbors who kept to themselves because helping cost too much. We parked in the back alley. Vincent scanned the shadows before opening my door. Which apartment? 2nd floor, 2B. He nodded. We climbed the creaky exterior stairs. I fumbled for my keys, hands shaking from cold and nerves. The lock stuck, as always. Vincent gently took the keys and opened it for me. Inside, the difference hit like a slap. My apartment was tiny, living room/kitchen combined, one small bedroom for Mia, a bathroom with cracked tiles. Heat barely worked. I could see my breath in the air. The fridge hummed weakly, mostly empty except for Mia's school lunch items. A single bulb lit the space. My mattress lay on the floor in the corner, blanket folded neatly because I couldn't afford a frame. Vincent stepped in and stopped. He took it all in slowly, the patched walls, the stack of overdue bills on the counter, the single pair of Mia's shoes by the door, my coat hanging on a nail because there was no closet. I saw his face change. Guilt crashed over him so hard his shoulders bowed, remorse like acid in his eyes. Violent inner conflict tearing at the man who owned penthouses and private jets, while the woman who'd saved his life lived like this. He closed the door softly behind us. Grace. I'm sorry it's not, I started, voice timid, ashamed. He crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled me against him, arms fierce around my thin frame. Don't you dare apologize. Not for this. Not ever. I broke then. Sobs I'd held back for years spilled out, quiet, wrenching. For every night, Mia and I ate pasta with no sauce. For the eviction scare last winter when the landlord threatened to change the locks. For the humiliation of food pantry lines, of turning off lights to save on the bill, of wearing the same coat 3 years running until the zipper broke. Vincent held me through it all, one hand stroking my hair, the other wrapped around my back like he could shield me from every unfair thing the world had thrown. I felt his own tears against my temple, silent, anguished. When the storm passed, he pulled back just enough to look at me. His eyes burned with love now, passionate, overwhelming, undeniable. A love that had ignited the moment I risked everything for him, and now blazed brighter with every layer of my suffering he uncovered. "You're never coming back here to live like this," he said, voice rough with a vow. "Not you, not Mia." Mia. Oh God. "Where is she?" he asked gently. "With my sister downstate. School break. She's safe there until—" I trailed off. He nodded. "Good. We'll bring her here when it's safe. Or somewhere better." We settled in uneasily. He insisted I take the mattress. He took the floor with a single blanket. I protested timidly, but he wouldn't hear it. That first afternoon, danger found us faster than we hoped. A knock at the door, sharp, official. My heart stopped. Vincent motioned me to stay back. He looked through the peephole. "Building super," he whispered, "with 2 guys I don't know." Luca's men. They'd started canvassing poor neighborhoods, paying supers for tips about strange tenants or new faces. Vincent opened the door just a crack, chain still on. "Yeah?" The super, greasy hair, nervous eyes, shifted. "Heard you had a new friend staying. Just checking if everything's okay. These gentlemen wanted to ask about a missing person." Vincent's voice turned ice. "Everything's fine. Tell your friends they're in the wrong building." One of the men pushed forward. "We're looking for Vincent Moretti. Word is he might be hiding low." Vincent's smile was lethal. "You think Vincent Moretti would hide in a dump like this?" The man hesitated. Vincent stepped out into the hallway suddenly, closing the door behind him to shield me. I pressed my ear to it, terrified. Words turned to threats, then scuffling. I cracked the door. Vincent had the super pinned against the wall, gently but firmly. The 2 thugs were backing down the stairs, hands raised. "Tell Luca," Vincent said quietly. "Next time he sends boys to scare women and children, I send them back in pieces." The men fled. Vincent returned, breathing hard, a fresh bruise on his knuckles. He locked the door, leaned against it a moment, eyes closed. I crossed to him, touched his arm timidly. "You didn't have to—" "Yes," he said fiercely, pulling me close again. "I did. For you." That night, heat failed completely. The apartment dropped to freezing. I woke shivering on the mattress, teeth chattering. Vincent was beside me instantly, wrapping me in the blanket and his arms. Body heat, heartbeat, steady against my back. "I'm getting you out of this cold," he whispered into my hair. But outside, footsteps echoed in the stairwell, heavy, searching. Another confrontation. Vincent slipped out the window onto the fire escape, drawing them away. I heard shouts below, then silence. He returned 20 minutes later, scraped and cold, but victorious. We didn't sleep much after that. Days blurred. He brought groceries, real food, fruit, milk for Mia when she returned. He fixed the heat himself with tools from the truck. He sat with me in the quiet evenings, listening to stories of my life I'd never told anyone. The jobs lost, the hospital bills, the nights I cried silently so Mia wouldn't hear. With every story, his love grew fiercer, his remorse deeper, his determination absolute. One evening, snow started falling, early for October, thick and silent. We stood at the window watching it blanket the alley, Vincent's arm around my shoulders, my head against his chest. "I used to dream about snow like this," I whispered, "when I was little. Thought it made everything clean." He tightened his hold. "I'll give you clean," he promised. "A new start for both of you." I looked up at him, tall, powerful, eyes burning with passion that stole my breath. And in that humble, freezing apartment where I'd known only struggle, hidden from the world that wanted him dead, I felt the last walls around my heart crumble. He was seeing me, all of me, the broken parts, the poor parts, the brave parts, and loving me anyway, fiercely, completely, irrevocably. The trail was erased, but the love, impossible, overwhelming, burning brighter than any danger, had only just begun to light the darkness. The days in my tiny uptown apartment blurred into a strange, fragile rhythm. October 2025 deepened, the wind off the lake turning sharper, rattling the loose windows until I woke with chills that no amount of blankets could chase away. Vincent fixed what he could, stuffing rags into cracks, taping plastic over panes, but the cold still found ways in, just like the memories that found me in the quiet hours. I lay on the mattress at night, listening to him breathe on the floor beside me, close enough to reach out if I dared. He refused the bed every time, saying I needed rest more. But sleep came in fits, haunted by flashes of the penthouse, Isabella's cold smile, Luca's laugh, and worse, older ghosts. Mia crying from hunger when I had nothing to give, the eviction notice last winter, the night the power was cut and we huddled under every coat we owned. Vincent woke whenever I stirred, hand finding mine in the dark, murmuring, "I'm here." His voice, low, steady, laced with that burning protectiveness, became the only thing that pulled me back from the edge. He cooked for me every meal now. Oatmeal thick with milk and real honey in the morning, sandwiches with meat and cheese in the afternoon, soup simmering on the ancient stove at night, food I'd only dreamed of. My body began to respond, less dizziness, fewer moments where the room spun and I had to grip the wall to stay upright. But the weight I carried inside grew heavier with every kindness he showed, because every bite reminded me how starving I'd been. Every warm blanket reminded me how cold I'd lived. Every gentle touch from this powerful man reminded me how invisible I'd felt for years. One afternoon, snow flurries danced past the window. Vincent stood at the sink washing dishes. Simple tasks he did without complaint, sleeves rolled up, strong hands careful with my chipped plates. I watched from the table, wrapped in his leather jacket over two of his sweaters. He caught me looking. "What is it?" I hesitated, voice soft and timid. "You don't have to do that. The dishes, any of it." He dried his hands slowly, turned to face me, gray eyes fierce with emotion. "I want to." The silence stretched, thick with everything building between us. Then he crossed the small space and knelt in front of me, taking my thin hands in his warm ones. "Talk to me, Grace. What's going on in that head?" The words spilled before I could stop them, quiet, broken. "I keep thinking about all the years, how I cleaned your home every day and you never saw me, not really. And now you're here, doing dishes in my broken apartment, protecting me from men who want you dead. It doesn't make sense. I'm nobody." His face twisted, guilt, remorse, violent inner conflict tearing at him so hard his hands trembled around mine. "You're not nobody," he said roughly. "You're the only somebody who mattered when it counted." Tears filled my eyes. "But why? I'm just the maid who—" He stopped me with a gentle finger to my lips, then cupped my cheek. "You're the woman who saved my life when my own blood wanted it ended. The woman who suffered more than anyone should and still has kindness in her heart. The woman I—" He stopped, throat working, eyes burning brighter. "The woman he what?" He didn't finish, just pulled me into his arms, holding me like I was made of glass and steel at once. That evening, the weight of betrayal hit him hardest. We sat on the floor, there was no couch, backs against the wall, sharing a mug of tea because I only had one that wasn't cracked. Snow fell thicker now, muffling the city sounds. Vincent stared into the steam, voice low. I keep replaying it. Every morning, Isabella handed me that espresso with a smile. Every time Luca clapped me on the back and called me brother. I trusted them with everything, my business, my secrets, my life. His hand clenched around the mug. I built all this power, all this money, thinking it protected me, but the people closest cut deepest. I reached out timidly, covered his fist with my small hand. I'm sorry. He turned to me, eyes raw. Don't be sorry for them. Be sorry for me, that I was blind to you while they poisoned me slowly. The torment in his voice broke something in me. I shifted closer, resting my head on his shoulder. He stiffened for a second, then wrapped an arm around me, pulling me against his side. We stayed like that as night fell, snow piling against the window. His heartbeat steady under my ear, the love radiating from him, passionate, intense, overwhelming, wrapped around me warmer than any blanket. But danger never stayed away long. Late that night, headlights swept across the curtains, slow, deliberate. Vincent was up instantly, moving to the window. 3 cars parked across the street, men getting out, scanning buildings. Luca's widening the net, he whispered. They're checking every tenant with a history of money trouble, thinking I'd pay someone off. My heart seized. My history of money trouble was a mile long. Late rent, utility shutoffs, hospital liens. He grabbed a dark coat from the hook, his spare, and pulled me to my feet. Back way, now. We slipped out the rear door onto the fire escape. Snow crunched underfoot. Cold bit through my thin layers instantly. Halfway down, voices echoed below, men entering the alley. Vincent swore softly. He guided me back up, through my window, then out the front instead, bold, risky. In the hallway, 2 of Luca's soldiers were knocking on doors. Vincent didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, posture shifting into pure authority. You lost? The men turned, surprised. Recognition dawned. One smirked. There you are, boss. Luca wants a word. Vincent's smile was ice. Tell Luca if he wants me, he stops hiding behind errand boys. Words escalated fast. One man reached inside his coat. Vincent moved, disarming the reach, shoving the man into his partner. They stumbled. He grabbed the second by the collar, slammed him against my door, hard enough to rattle it. Touch her apartment again, he growled, and you don't leave upright. The men backed off, hands raised, retreating down the stairs. Vincent returned to me inside, breathing hard, snow melting in his hair. A cut on his knuckles welled red. I fetched a rag, my only clean one, and pressed it to his hand, voice trembling. You can't keep doing this. They'll hurt you. He caught my wrist gently, eyes fierce. They can try, but they won't touch you, ever. The intensity in his gaze, the burning love that had grown from gratitude to devotion to something all-consuming, stole my breath. Later, after the cars left, we sat together again. He cleaned his own cut, refusing to let me fuss. I curled against him, exhaustion pulling at me. I keep waiting to wake up, I whispered. To be back alone, scraping by, wondering if Mia will have lunch tomorrow. His arm tightened around me. That life is over, I swear it. But the unfairness rose like bile. Why me? You could have anyone, someone from your world, beautiful, rich, who understands all this. He tilted my chin up, eyes blazing. I don't want anyone from that world. That world tried to kill me. You're real. You're everything good I forgot existed. Tears spilled again, the shock of it, being wanted, truly wanted, by this powerful man, tore through me. Confusion, wonder, terror that it couldn't last. He brushed the tears away with his thumb, then leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull back. I didn't. His lips met mine, gentle at first, then deeper, fierce with everything he couldn't say. Passion that had been building for days ignited. My hands fisted in his shirt. His arms crushed me closer, careful even in intensity. When we broke apart, foreheads touching, breathing ragged, he whispered against my mouth, I love you, Grace. God help me, I love you so much, it hurts. The words shattered me. A man who had everything, saying them to a woman who had nothing. I cried harder, tears of joy and disbelief and lingering fear. He held me through the night, whispering promises into my hair. Safety, warmth, a future where Mia would never know hunger. Outside, snow covered the city in silence. Inside, the weight of betrayal began to lift, replaced by something stronger. Love, passionate, burning, impossible, blooming fierce and bright in the humblest place either of us had ever been. But we both knew the danger wasn't finished, and the real fight was only beginning. Snow kept falling outside the window, thick and relentless, turning the alley into a white blur. It was still October 2025, but Chicago didn't care about calendars. The cold had settled in early, sneaking through every crack in my apartment walls, wrapping around my bones like it owned them. I sat on the mattress with my knees drawn up, wrapped in Vincent's leather jacket and 2 blankets. The heat rattled but barely pushed back the chill. My breath fogged in the air. Vincent had gone out an hour ago, quietly, carefully, to get more groceries and check if the streets were clear. He'd kissed my forehead before leaving, a soft press of lips that still made my heart stumble. Alone, the old fears crept in louder. I thought about Mia, safe with my sister, but probably wondering why Mom hadn't called in days. I thought about the stack of bills in the drawer, final notices, red stamps, threats of shutoff. I thought about how close I'd come last month to losing this place, how I'd begged the landlord on my knees for 1 more week. The unfairness rose like bile. Why did some people have everything while others scraped for nothing? Why had I worked 2 jobs, cleaned houses like Vincent's until my hands bled, and still couldn't keep my daughter warm? Tears came hot and sudden. I pressed my face into the blanket to muffle the sound, shoulders shaking. The door opened softly. Vincent stepped in, snowflakes melting in his dark hair, arms full of bags. He took 1 look at me and dropped everything, crossing the room in 3 strides. Grace. His voice broke on my name. He knelt, pulled me into his arms without asking. I clung to him, sobs tearing free, ugly, wrenching sounds I'd held in for years. He rocked me gently, 1 hand stroking my back, the other cradling my head. I'm here. I've got you. When the storm eased, he didn't let go, just held me in the quiet, snow tapping the window like soft fingers. I wiped my face with the sleeve of his jacket, too big, smelling of him. I'm sorry, it all hits sometimes. Don't apologize, he said fiercely, not for feeling. He pulled back enough to look at me, gray eyes searching. Tell me what triggered it. I hesitated, ashamed, but his gaze was steady, patient. So I told him, haltingly, timidly, about the bills, the begging, the nights Mia asked why we couldn't have heat like her friends, about the time the food pantry ran out of milk and I gave her water with a little sugar instead. With every word, his face changed. Guilt deepened the lines around his eyes. Remorse twisted his mouth. Violent inner conflict raged behind that steady gaze. The powerful man who'd shaped Chicago's shadows, now confronted by the suffering he'd never noticed under his own roof. When I finished, voice barely a whisper, he was silent a long moment. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded paper, old, creased, like it had been carried a long time. I wasn't going to show you this, he said quietly. Didn't want gratitude. But you need to know. He handed it to me. I unfolded it with trembling fingers. A printout from a charitable foundation, anonymous donor records, 2 years ago. A large sum toward experimental treatment for a child with autoimmune disease. The patient name, Mia Thompson. My breath stopped. I stared at the paper, then at him. This was you? He nodded once, eyes never leaving mine. I saw the bills in your bag one day when you were cleaning. You'd fallen asleep on the couch waiting for a load of laundry. The medical folder was sticking out. I looked. Tears filled my eyes again. You paid for half her treatment, the part insurance wouldn't cover, the part that saved her life. I didn't want you to know, he said roughly. Didn't want you to feel owed. I laughed, a broken, disbelieving sound. All this time I prayed for that donor, thanked God for some stranger who cared when no one else did. And it was you, right in front of me. He cupped my face gently, thumbs brushing away tears. I didn't care enough then, not really. I threw money at it and walked away. That's not kindness. That's guilt with a checkbook. No, I whispered fiercely. You saved my daughter when I had nothing, when I was praying on my knees in hospital chapels for a miracle. You were the miracle. The words hung between us. Something shattered in his expression, walls he'd carried for years. Guilt and remorse crashed over him in a wave so strong his hands shook against my skin. He pressed his forehead to mine, breathing ragged. I didn't deserve your kindness that night in the pantry, he said, voice raw. Not after ignoring you for years. Not after letting you live like this while I stopped him with a soft touch to his lips. You gave me the only thing that mattered, hope, for Mia. He pulled me close again, arms crushing, like he could pour every apology into the embrace. We stayed like that as snow piled higher outside. Later, he made hot chocolate, real cocoa, thick cream, marshmallows he'd bought just because he remembered me mentioning once that Mia loved them. We shared a mug sitting on the mattress, backs against the wall. The revelation changed something between us, deepened it. The love that had been building, passionate, intense, burning, flared brighter now, fed by truth. But truth brought danger too. That same evening, as darkness fell early under heavy clouds, a loud knock shook the door. Vincent tensed instantly. Stay back. He looked through the peephole, his face hardened. Building manager, with 4 men. Luca's people had bribed their way in again. Vincent opened the door a crack. We're paid up. What do you want? The manager shifted nervously. These gentlemen say they're looking for a friend, offered a reward for information. Vincent's voice turned lethal quiet. There's no one here but us. Tell them to leave. One man pushed forward. We'll just take a quick look. Vincent stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind him to shield me. I pressed my ear to the wood, heart pounding. Voices rose, threats, demands, then scuffling. I cracked the door. Vincent had 2 men backed against the wall, grip firm but controlled. The manager cowered. The other 2 hesitated on the stairs. You tell Luca, Vincent said, voice low and deadly. He keeps sending men to this building. I start sending messages he won't like. He released them. They scrambled away. Vincent returned, a fresh bruise blooming on his cheek. He locked the door, leaned against it a moment, eyes closed. I crossed to him, touched the bruise gently. You're hurt again. He caught my hand, held it to his face. Worth it. The intensity in his gaze, the burning love, now layered with fierce protectiveness, born from knowing he'd already saved my daughter once, made my knees weak. He pulled me close, lips finding mine in a kiss deeper than before. Passion ignited, careful but desperate. His hands framed my face, mine fisted in his shirt. When we broke apart, breathing hard, he whispered against my lips, You and Mia, you're my family now. I'd fight the whole city for you. Tears came again, joy, disbelief, the shock of being loved so completely by a man who'd once been a stranger in a world far above mine. That night, the power went out. Unfair, absurd timing. The ancient wiring finally gave up under the storm. The apartment plunged into cold darkness. I fumbled for candles, half-used ones I'd saved from birthdays past. Vincent found matches in a drawer. We lit 3, flames flickering shadows on the walls. Heat gone, temperature dropping fast. Vincent pulled the mattress closer to the candles, piled every blanket we had. He wrapped me in his arms under them, body heat our only warmth. I shivered against him. This happened last winter, too. Mia and I wore coats to bed. His arms tightened, torment ripping through him anew. Never again. We lay in the flickering light, snow muffling the world outside. He told me stories then, quiet ones, about his mother, how she'd worn the St. Christopher medal until the day she died, about growing up poor himself before the family business changed everything, about the guilt he'd carried ever since. I listened, fingers tracing the bruise on his cheek. When silence fell, he kissed me again, slow, deep, full of everything words couldn't hold. The love between us, born in danger, forged in revelation, burning brighter with every truth shared, became the only light in that cold, dark room. Outside, Luca's men circled closer. Inside, 2 hearts, once lonely, once invisible, found each other completely. And nothing, not betrayal or poverty or pursuing danger, could dim what had begun to blaze between us. The snow stopped sometime during the night, leaving the city hushed under a thick white blanket. But the quiet felt deceptive, like the calm before something worse. By morning, the apartment was colder than ever, the power still out, the candles burned low. I woke curled against Vincent, his arm heavy around me, his breath warm on my neck. For a few heartbeats, I let myself believe it was real safety. Then a loud knock shattered the stillness. Vincent was up instantly, body tense, hand reaching for the coat where he kept his protection hidden. He motioned me to stay on the mattress, silent. The knock came again, insistent, official. "Maintenance," a man's voice called. "Power outage reported. Need to check the box." Vincent's eyes narrowed. He moved to the peephole. I saw his shoulders tighten. "Not maintenance," he whispered. "2 of Luca's guys with the super." Paranoia bloomed sharp and cold in my chest. They were getting bolder, closer. Vincent opened the door just enough to block the view inside. "We're fine, no problems here." The super, nervous, sweating despite the cold, shifted. "Just doing my rounds. These gentlemen are helping." One of Luca's men leaned in. "Heard there's a stranger staying in the building. Tall guy, dark hair. We're concerned for tenant safety." Vincent's voice was steel wrapped in calm. "You're concerned for the wrong reasons. Leave." The man tried to push the door wider. Vincent held it firm. Words turned sharp, threats barely veiled. I pressed against the wall, heart hammering, dizziness sweeping over me again. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the mattress to stay upright. Vincent stepped into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind him. Through the thin wood, I heard scuffling, grunts, the super pleading. Then footsteps retreating fast down the stairs. Vincent returned, a new cut on his lip, breathing hard. He locked the door, slid the chain, then leaned against it a moment, eyes closed. "They're watching the building now," he said quietly. "Won't stop until they confirm I'm here." Fear coiled tight in my stomach. What do we do? He crossed to me, knelt, took my cold hands in his warm ones. "We stay smart, stay hidden. I'll handle them." But the paranoia spread like frost. That afternoon, Mrs. Alvarez from 2C knocked, soft, hesitant. She was the closest thing to a friend I had in the building, an older woman who sometimes slipped Mia homemade tamales when money was tight. I opened the door a crack. Her eyes darted past me. "Mija, people are asking questions. Strange men in the lobby, offering money for information about new faces, about a man staying with you." My throat closed. "I don't know anything." She pressed a small bag into my hand, fresh bread, still warm. "Be careful. These men don't look like they take no for an answer." Vincent watched from the shadows as I closed the door. His face was stone, but his eyes, tormented, furious at himself for bringing danger to my doorstep. He pulled me close. "I'm sorry, this is my fault." I shook my head against his chest. "You didn't choose this." But the unfairness gnawed deeper. My neighbors, already struggling, already afraid of landlords and bills, now pulled into something deadly because of me. Because I dared to help a man from a world that devoured people like us. By evening, the lobby buzzer sounded repeatedly. Wrong apartments, wrong names, delivery excuses. Each time Vincent checked the window, watching men in dark coats linger across the street, phones to ears. Paranoia turned the small apartment into a cage. I paced the few steps I could, thin frame shaking from cold and nerves. Hunger edged back despite Vincent's efforts, the stress killing my appetite. My reflection in the bathroom mirror scared me. Cheekbones sharper, eyes sunken, skin pale from too many sleepless nights. Vincent caught me there, wrapped his arms around me from behind. "You're fading," he said, voice rough with worry and guilt. "I can't watch you disappear." "I'm okay," I lied softly, timidly. He turned me to face him, eyes burning. "No, you're not, and it's killing me." The love in his gaze, passionate, overwhelming, fierce, cut through the fear for a moment. He kissed me then, deep and desperate, hands framing my face like I was the only real thing in his world. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "We have to get you stronger, warmer, safer." But outside, the net tightened. That night, a fire alarm blared, false, pulled in the lobby. Tenants grumbled out into the snow. Vincent watched from the window. "They're clearing the building, searching floor by floor." Horror flooded me. We couldn't leave, spotted instantly. Couldn't stay, found in minutes. He grabbed a dark blanket, wrapped it around my shoulders. "Roof, now." We climbed the interior stairs to the attic access, then out onto the snowy roof. Wind whipped sharp and bitter. I slipped on ice. Vincent caught me, arms strong around my waist. We crouched behind the chimney, watching figures move through the building with flashlights. My teeth chattered uncontrollably. Cold seeped through my thin layers instantly. Vincent pulled me into his coat with him, shielding me from the wind with his body. "I've got you." Below, doors opened, voices echoed. They were thorough. One beam of light swept the roof. We pressed lower. Minutes dragged like hours. My fingers went numb. Dizziness returned, stronger. The world blurred white. Vincent noticed. "Grace, stay with me." He rubbed my hands between his, breathed warm air on them. His own torment was plain. Remorse for dragging me into this, violent conflict between keeping me hidden and wanting to end the threat once and for all. Finally, the search moved on. False alarm called off. Tenants grumbled back inside. We waited longer, then slipped down. Back in the apartment, Vincent built a small fire in the sink with newspaper and wood scraps he'd gathered. Dangerous, but necessary for warmth. He boiled snow in a pot for hot water, made weak tea. We sat close to the tiny flame, sharing body heat. I started crying quietly. Exhaustion, fear, the crushing weight of how unfair it all was. Vincent held me tighter. "This ends soon, I promise." But the next morning brought worse. A notice slid under the door. Eviction warning, immediate, for suspicious activity and unpaid back rent. My heart stopped. The landlord, tipped off, bribed, threatened, had chosen sides. Vincent read it, face darkening with fury and guilt. "They're trying to flush us out." I sank to the floor, numbness spreading. After everything, working double shifts, begging for extensions, this place, humble as it was, gone. Mia and I would have nowhere. Vincent knelt, pulled me against him. "You're not losing this, not because of me." But the tears came harder, the humiliation of it, being forced out like vermin while Luca's men waited outside. He rocked me, whispering promises, his own heart tearing audibly in his voice. Later, when the lobby filled with more visitors, Vincent went down alone, bold, unexpected. I watched from the window as he confronted 3 men in the entryway, words sharp, postures threatening. He backed them out onto the sidewalk, dominance clear even from 4 floors up. They left, for now. He returned, scraped but victorious, pulled me into his arms again. The paranoia peaked that night. Every creak was footsteps. Every car door slam was them. I barely slept, jumping at shadows. Vincent held me through it all, his love the only steady thing. In the darkest hour, snow starting again, he whispered against my hair, "I'd trade every dollar, every ounce of power to give you peace." I looked up at him, tall, strong, tormented, eyes burning with devotion. And in that moment, despite the fear, despite the cold and the pursuit, I believed him. The love between us, forged in danger, deepened by revelation, tested by rising paranoia, burned brighter than any threat closing in. We were cornered, but we were together, and that, somehow, was everything. The days of hiding stretched into a fragile limbo, snow piling higher against the windows until the alley below disappeared under white drifts. Power came back sporadically, enough for a few hours of heat before flickering out again. Vincent rigged an extension cord from the hallway outlet when no one was looking, a small act of defiance that kept us from freezing completely. My body began to recover, slowly, painfully. The constant meals Vincent prepared, simple but nourishing, eggs, oatmeal, canned soup stretched with extra vegetables, filled out the hollow places inside me. The dizziness came less often. My hands stopped shaking as much. Sleep, when it came, was deeper, wrapped in his arms on the mattress we now shared without pretense. But recovery brought its own torment. Every pound I gained, every moment of warmth, reminded me how long I'd lived without. Every time Vincent's strong hands steadied me, I remembered years of standing alone. The contrast tore at me, the man who commanded Chicago's shadows, now kneeling to lace my borrowed boots because my fingers were too cold to manage. One morning, weak sunlight filtered through the frosted window. I woke to find Vincent watching me, head propped on his hand, gray eyes soft but burning with that intensity that never dimmed. "You're getting color back," he said quietly, thumb brushing my cheek. "You're beautiful." I turned my face away, ashamed. "I'm still too thin, still—" "You're perfect," he said fiercely, "and you're mine to take care of now." The words sent a shiver through me, possessive, protective, laced with the passionate love that had grown unstoppable. He rose, made coffee on the hot plate he'd bought with cash from an ATM far from here. The aroma filled the small space, rich and real. He brought me a mug, sat beside me on the mattress. We drank in silence, shoulders touching. Then he spoke, voice low. "I've been thinking about ending this." My heart stuttered. "How?" "There's a charity gala at the Drake Hotel next week. Black tie, politicians, old money. Isabella and Luca will be there, showing face, proving they're still in control." I set my mug down, fear rising. "You want to go there?" He nodded. "Public place, cameras, witnesses. If I confront them openly, they can't touch me without exposing themselves." Dangerous, reckless. But his eyes held resolve and something deeper. A need to reclaim power not for himself, but for us. I reached for his hand timidly. "I'm scared." He threaded our fingers together. "I know, but hiding forever isn't living. Not for you, not for Mia." Mia. The name hung between us. He'd promised to bring her here soon, to a better place. The thought of my daughter safe, warm, with this man who already loved her because she was mine. It cracked my heart wider. That afternoon, recovery took a step forward. Vincent insisted I move more. Blood flowing keeps you strong. He cleared the small living room space, pushed the table aside. We walked slow circles, his arm around my waist when my legs wobbled. He counted steps softly, encouraging. 10, 20, 30. Dizziness hit at 40. The room spun. I swayed. He caught me instantly, lowering us both to the floor. I ended up in his lap, head against his chest, breathing hard. "Easy," he murmured, hands stroking my back. "You're doing so good." Tears pricked. I used to walk miles to work when the bus fare was for Mia's school lunch. His arms tightened, torment ripping through him anew. Never again. We stayed on the floor a long time, his heartbeat steady under my ear, the love radiating from him, fierce, consuming, wrapped around me like the warmest blanket. Later, he helped me stand again. This time I made 50 steps. Small victories, but each one felt huge. By evening, strength returned enough for something new. Vincent pulled an old radio from a drawer, one I'd forgotten I owned. He tuned it carefully until soft music filled the room, slow, classic songs from a station that still played them. He held out his hand. "Dance with me?" I stared, confused, fearful. "I don't know how." "I'll teach you." He pulled me up gently, one hand at my waist, the other holding mine. We swayed in the tiny space, barely moving, just shifting weight. His body warm and solid against my thin frame. I rested my head on his chest, eyes closing. The first spark ignited then. Not just gratitude, not just safety. Desire. Deep, aching. The realization that this man, this powerful, dangerous, tormented man, wanted me. Not out of pity, not obligation. Wanted me with a passion that matched the love in his eyes. His hand slid up my back, fingers threading in my hair. He tilted my face up. The kiss started soft, questioning, then deepened, hungry. My hands fisted in his shirt. His arms crushed me closer, careful of my lingering fragility. When we broke apart, breathing ragged, he whispered against my lips, "I've wanted to do that properly since the night you saved me." Tears filled my eyes. Joy, disbelief, the shock of being desired by someone who could have anyone. He kissed them away, one by one. That night, danger interrupted again. Headlights swept the alley repeatedly, slow passes, searching. Vincent watched from the window, body coiled. "They're staking out now," he said, waiting for me to slip. Fear returned sharp. He turned, pulled me close. "Tomorrow, I'll draw them away. Give us breathing room." The next day he did, bold, unexpected. He left mid-morning, dressed in the hoodie and cap, slipping out the back. I watched from the window, heart in throat. 3 men followed him into the street. Vincent led them on a chase, cutting through alleys, doubling back. At a busy intersection near the L train, he confronted them openly. I couldn't hear words, but saw postures, threatening, then backing down. Vincent's dominance clear even from distance. One man reached. Vincent disarmed the motion smoothly, sent him stumbling. They retreated. Vincent disappeared around a corner, lost them completely. He returned 2 hours later, flushed but triumphant, a bag of fresh fruit in hand, apples, oranges, luxuries I hadn't tasted in months. "For you," he said, pressing an apple into my palm. "Vitamin C, strength." I bit into it, juice sweet on my tongue, tears coming again. He wiped them with his thumb, eyes burning. Recovery deepened. Days passed in quiet rhythm. Meals, slow walks around the room, dances to the radio, kisses that grew longer, deeper. My body filled out, cheeks less hollow, strength returning to legs and arms. One evening, after a full circuit of the apartment without dizziness, Vincent caught me around the waist, spun me gently. "You're strong again," he said, voice thick. I laughed, real, light, first time in years. The sound broke something in him. He kissed me fiercely, backing me against the wall, hands careful but desperate. We sank to the mattress together, kisses turning heated, breaths mingling. He pulled back suddenly, eyes tormented. "I won't rush you, not after everything you've been through." I touched his face, bruised from yesterday's confrontation, beautiful in its fierceness. "I want this, want you." The words unleashed him. Kisses turned passionate, intense. Hands exploring gently. His over my still thin curves with reverence. Mine over the hard plains of muscle earned from a life of power. We didn't go further, not yet, but the spark became flame. Later, lying tangled under blankets, his fingers tracing patterns on my back, he whispered, "When this is over, I'm giving you everything. A house with heat that works, food whenever you want it, security, Mia in the best schools." Tears again, happy ones. "I just want you," I said softly. "You have me," he vowed, "all of me." Outside, snow began falling again. Inside, recovery had brought more than strength. It brought the first true spark of a life we might dare to claim. The gala loomed closer, danger waited, but in each other's arms we found courage. The love, passionate, burning, overwhelming, had become our greatest weapon, and we were ready to use it. The plan took shape over quiet evenings, whispered across the small table lit by a single lamp. October 2025 was slipping away, snow turning to slush in the streets, but the cold inside my apartment lingered like a bad memory. Vincent spread a hand-drawn map of the Drake Hotel on the surface. Floors, entrances, security points, marked in careful pencil. He'd gone out twice more in the past days, risking everything to gather information. Each time he returned with new bruises, new cuts, but eyes brighter with purpose. I watched him now, tracing a route with his finger. The man who once commanded boardrooms and back alleys now planned like a general, for us. "The gala is in 5 days," he said quietly. "Black tie charity event, hundreds of guests, press, security. Luca and Isabella will be front and center, playing the perfect power couple." I hugged my knees, still thin but stronger now, wrapped in his sweater. "And we just walk in?" He looked up, gray eyes steady. "I have invitations, old connections that haven't turned yet. We go in separately, you as my +1, but we arrive apart to avoid notice." Fear coiled tight. "They'll recognize you." "Not if I'm careful." He touched the bruise fading on his cheek from last night's confrontation. "Disguise, different walk, you in a dress no one's seen." A dress. The word felt foreign. My wardrobe was threadbare jeans, secondhand coats, shoes with holes I'd patched with cardboard. He saw my hesitation. "I'll get you one. Something beautiful. You deserve it." Tears pricked. The unfairness rose again. How he could buy beauty with a phone call while I'd worn the same winter coat 4 years running. He reached across the table, took my hand. "Grace, this ends at the gala. I expose them publicly, force their hand. The old allies will see I'm alive. Luca's move collapses." I nodded, but my voice was small. What if it goes wrong? His jaw tightened, inner conflict raging. Guilt for risking me, remorse for dragging me deeper. Violent need to protect what was now his whole world. "Then I fight," he said fiercely, "with everything, for you." The love in his gaze, passionate, burning, overwhelming, stole my breath. He brought my hand to his lips, kissed my knuckles gently. We planned late into the night. Entrances, exits, signals. where I'd wait if separated. Vincent drew small X's for security cameras, circles for guards. His knowledge of such places, earned through years of power, made the disparity stark. He moved in worlds of crystal and marble while I'd scrub toilets in them. Between details, quiet moments stretched. He'd pause, look at me across the lamplight, reach out to tuck hair behind my ear, whisper, "You're the bravest person I know." I'd blush, timidly look away. "I'm just trying to keep up." "You're leading," he'd say, voice rough with emotion. One night, after mapping escape routes, he pulled me into his lap on the mattress. We kissed, slow at first, then deeper, hands exploring with growing confidence. My fingers traced the scars on his shoulders. His traced the sharp lines of my ribs, still fading. The spark from days ago had become steady flame. He pulled back, breathing hard. "When this is over," he whispered against my neck, "I'm taking you somewhere warm. Just us. No hiding." I clung to him, tears silent on my cheeks. But planning brought new dangers. 2 days before the gala, Vincent went out for supplies. A suit, the dress, cash. He was gone longer than planned. I paced the small space, fear building. Every car door outside made me jump. When he finally returned, coat torn, blood on his sleeve, my heart stopped. "Ambush," he said quietly, locking the door. 3 of Luca's best, knew my route. He'd led them through side streets, confronted them in a deserted parking lot near the river. I bandaged his arm, shallow cut but bright against his skin. "They're desperate now," he said. "Know something's coming." Guilt tore at him. "I should never have left you alone." I touched his face gently. "You came back." He pulled me close, arms crushing. "Always." The dress arrived the next day, delivered by a trusted old associate who didn't ask questions. Vincent laid the box on the table like it was fragile glass. I opened it with trembling fingers. Midnight blue silk. Simple, elegant. Cut to fit someone who'd never gone hungry. I held it up, tears coming. "It's too much." "It's not enough," he said fiercely. "Not for you." He helped me try it on, hands careful with the zipper, eyes darkening with desire and reverence. In the cracked bathroom mirror, I barely recognized myself. The dress hugged curves filling out from his care, color in my cheeks, eyes brighter. Vincent stood behind me, arms around my waist, chin on my shoulder. "You're stunning," he whispered. I turned in his arms. "Because of you." "No," he said, voice thick. "Because you're you." We kissed, passionate, intense, the counterstrike plan forgotten for a moment in the flame between us. But reality intruded. That night, building management cut power again. Retaliation for Vincent's earlier warnings. Darkness fell, sudden and complete. We lit candles, sat close. Vincent's torment peaked. "This life I dragged you into, hiding, fear, cold, it's not what you deserve." I took his hand. "I'd choose it again, to save you." His eyes filled, rare tears for a man who'd never shown weakness. He kissed me desperately then, hands framing my face. "I don't deserve you." "You have me," I whispered. Planning resumed by candlelight, final details. How I'd enter through a side door with a forged staff pass, where he'd wait inside, what to do if separated. Vincent memorized my face in the flickering glow. "If anything happens to me." "Nothing will," I said fiercely. He smiled sadly. "Promise me you'll run. Take the money I've hidden. Start new with Mia." Tears spilled. "I won't leave you." And he pulled me against him, voice breaking. "You're my whole world now, Grace. Everything I fight for." We made love that night, slow, reverent, first time fully giving ourselves. His touch worshipful over every inch he'd helped heal. My hands memorizing the man who'd become my everything. Afterward, tangled in blankets, he whispered promises into my skin. A house with sunlight, Mia's laughter filling rooms, mornings without fear. I clung to him, the poor woman who'd had nothing, now holding the richest treasure, his heart. The morning of the gala dawned gray and cold. Vincent dressed in the borrowed tux, perfect fit, power radiating even in disguise. He helped me with the dress, zipped it slowly, kissed the nape of my neck. We stood before the mirror together, him tall and commanding, me transformed beside him. Two people from worlds apart, now bound unbreakable. One last confrontation delayed us. As we prepared to leave separately, a loud bang on the door. Police, or Luca's men posing. Vincent checked the peephole. 4, armed heavy. No time for back exit. He grabbed my hand. Roof. We climbed fast, my legs strong enough now. On the roof, wind whipped snow flurries. Below, doors breaking in. Vincent scanned. Spotted a fire escape on the adjacent building. Close, but a jump needed. He went first, landed solid, held out his arms. Jump, I'll catch you. Terror froze me. You can, he said, eyes burning across the gap. I've got you. I jumped. He caught me, strong and sure. We descended, slipped into crowds, separate cabs. Heart pounding, I arrived at the service entrance first. A guard checked my forged pass, nerves screaming. He waved me through. Inside the glittering drake, chandeliers and wealth assaulted me. Women in diamonds, men in power. I moved through corridors, dress swishing, toward the ballroom. Vincent would enter the main doors soon. The counter-strike began. Fear and love warred inside me, equal measure. For him, for us, for the future we dared to plan in whispers. I stepped into the light, heart tearing with hope and dread. The plan was in motion. There was no turning back. The Drake Hotel ballroom glittered like a world I'd only cleaned the edges of. Chandeliers dripping crystal, tables draped in white linen, champagne flutes catching light like stars. October 2025's chill stayed outside. Inside, warmth and wealth wrapped around the guests in a cocoon I'd never known. I moved through the crowd in the midnight blue dress, heart pounding so hard I feared it would tear free. The silk swished against my legs stronger now from Vincent's care, but still trembling. Heels he'd chosen pinched my feet, unused to anything but worn sneakers. My hair, pinned up simply, felt foreign. Makeup light, but enough to hide the last shadows under my eyes. I was a ghost in their world, the former maid among the masters. Vincent had entered 20 minutes earlier through the main doors. We'd agreed. No contact until the moment. I spotted him across the room, tall, commanding, even in disguise. Tuxedo perfect, hair slicked differently, posture altered just enough. But those gray eyes found mine instantly across the sea of people. A look passed. Love, fierce and burning. Reassurance. Promise. Then he turned away, moving toward the cluster where Isabella and Luca held court. Isabella, stunning in red, diamonds at her throat. Luca beside her, smiling that charming, deadly smile. My stomach twisted. They thought him dead, thought their poison had worked. I stayed near the corridor Vincent had marked, quiet, less crowded, waited. Guests laughed, clinked glasses, politicians shook hands, flashbulbs popped for photos. I felt small, out of place. The old poverty clung to me like a shadow. Memories of empty cupboards, of scrubbing these very floors on my knees, while people like this danced above me. A server passed with a tray of canapes. My mouth watered. I hadn't eaten since morning, nerves killing appetite. I took one timidly, caviar on toast, rich, salty. Tears pricked unexpectedly. Once this would have been a week's luxury. Vincent reached the group. I couldn't hear words from here, but saw postures shift. Luca turned first, slowly, glass halfway to his lips. Color drained from his face. Isabella followed his gaze. Her smile froze, then shattered. Vincent spoke, calm, audible to those nearby. Conversation around them hushed. Then Luca moved, fast, angry, pushing through guests toward the side corridor, toward me. Vincent followed, cutting him off. I backed deeper into the hallway, pulse racing. Luca spotted me near the velvet rope. His eyes narrowed, recognition, then rage. He reached me first, grabbing my wrist hard enough to bruise. "So you're the one hiding him," he hissed, voice low but venomous. "The little maid who thought she could play hero?" Pain shot up my arm. Fear flooded, old, powerless fear. "Let go," I whispered, voice soft, trembling. He tightened his grip, pulling me closer. "You cost me everything. When I'm done, you'll wish you'd stayed invisible." Guests nearby began noticing, whispers. Vincent appeared like a storm. He grabbed Luca's arm, twisted until the grip released. I stumbled back, rubbing my wrist. Vincent stepped between us, body shielding mine. Luca snarled, "You're supposed to be dead." Vincent's voice cut clear, loud enough for growing crowd. Thanks to my wife and cousin, almost was. Slow poison in my coffee every morning. Sound familiar? Gasps rippled. Isabella pushed through, face pale but composed. "Vincent, darling, this is a misunderstanding. You've been ill, stressed." Vincent turned to her, eyes cold fire. "Ill from what you poured in my cup with a smile." Phones rose, recording. Luca tried to laugh it off. "He's delusional. Grief, maybe." Vincent didn't touch him, didn't need to. His presence dominated. "Ask the staff who supplied the toxin," he said. "Ask why my housekeeper saved me when my own blood wanted me gone." Eyes turned to me. I stood frozen, poor girl in borrowed dress, wrist red, tears threatening. Vincent reached back, took my hand gently, pulled me to his side. "This woman," he said, voice carrying, "risked everything when she could have walked away. She's the only honest soul in my life." The crowd murmured. Luca's face twisted. He lunged, not at Vincent, but at me again. Vincent intercepted, fist connecting with Luca's jaw in a sharp crack. Luca staggered back, hit the wall. Chaos erupted. Shouts, gasps, phones higher. Security rushed in. But Vincent stood tall, hand still holding mine, eyes blazing. He'd done it. Public, unmistakable. The first shock rippled through the room like electricity. Isabella tried to speak, but her voice cracked. Luca clutched his jaw, rage replacing shock. Federal agents, tipped anonymously weeks ago, appeared at the edges. The confrontation had begun. And in Vincent's grip on my hand, fierce, protective, I felt the full force of his love. The poor woman no one saw, now seen by everyone, standing beside the man who'd become her everything. The world spun, but he held me steady. The corridor outside the ballroom held its breath for one heartbeat after Vincent's fist connected with Luca's jaw. Then the world exploded. Phones rose higher. Guests screamed or gasped. Security guards pushed through the crowd, shouting for space. Flashbulbs burst like gunfire. In that frozen instant, I saw everything. Luca on the marble floor, clutching his face. Isabella's perfect mass cracking into raw panic. Vincent standing over them, tall, unbowed, hands still tightly holding mine. Federal agents in dark suits appeared at every doorway, calm, clipped voices cutting through the chaos. They moved with purpose, badges flashing. "Vincent Moretti," the lead agent called. "Step back. We have warrants." Vincent raised his free hand slowly, but didn't release mine. His eyes never left Luca and Isabella. Luca scrambled up, blood on his lip, rage twisting his features. "This is assault. He attacked me." The agent nearest him snapped cuffs on before he finished. "Luca Moretti, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and multiple counts of racketeering." Isabella tried to back away, smile trembling. "There's been a terrible mistake. I'm his wife. I can explain." Another agent stepped forward. "Isabella Moretti, same charges. Hands behind your back." Her face drained of color so completely she looked like porcelain about to shatter. Diamonds glittered coldly at her throat as cuffs clicked shut. A third agent approached a man in the crowd I vaguely recognized, one of the household staff who'd always avoided my eyes. His hands shook as he raised them. I was just following orders," he stammered. "She told me to bring the supplements, said they were for his health. I didn't know." His confession spilled out, loud in the stunned hush. Cameras caught every word. Vincent's grip on my hand tightened, pain and vindication warring in his eyes. Guilt for trusting them. Remorse for the years lost to their deception. Violent inner conflict now turning to fierce protectiveness as he pulled me closer to his side. The ballroom doors had opened wide. Reporters poured in, microphones forward. Questions flew. "Is it true you were poisoned by your own family? Who is the woman beside you?" Vincent ignored them all. He turned to me instead, gray eyes burning through the chaos. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly, voice only for me. My wrist throbbed where Luca had grabbed it, but I nodded. Tears blurred everything, the glittering room, the cuffs, the faces staring. He brushed a tear from my cheek with his thumb, uncaring who saw. Then the second shock hit. Luca, being led away in cuffs, suddenly twisted free of the agent's grip. Desperation turned him feral. He shoved through guests, snatched a decorative letter opener from a nearby table, long, sharp silver. The room screamed. He lunged, not at Vincent, at me. "You ruined everything," he shouted, blade raised. Time slowed. Vincent moved faster than thought, shoving me behind him, body shielding mine completely. But Luca was close, too close. The blade flashed. Vincent caught his wrist, twisted hard. Bone cracked. The opener clattered to the marble. Agents tackled Luca, pinning him face down, but not before the tip grazed my upper arm, a shallow slice through silk and skin. Pain bloomed hot and bright. I gasped, stumbled back against the wall. Vincent whirled, face ashen. "Grace." Blood seeped dark against the midnight blue dress. He caught me as my knees buckled, lowering us both to the floor amid the chaos. "Pressure! Someone get pressure!" he shouted, voice breaking for the first time. He pressed his palm to the wound, eyes wild with torment. Guilt crashed over him like a tidal wave. Remorse that his war had touched me. Violent self-hatred for failing to protect me completely. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice raw. "I'm so sorry." Agents swarmed, paramedics pushing through. But Vincent didn't move. He held me on the cold marble, blood staining his white shirt cuff, eyes never leaving mine. The room spun. Shock and blood loss made everything distant. I reached up with my good hand, touched his face. "You saved me. Again." Tears fell from his eyes, silent, anguished. A man who'd never cried in public, now broken open for the world to see. Cameras flashed endlessly, reporters shouted questions, but in that circle of chaos there was only us, his forehead pressed to mine. "Stay with me, Grace, please." Paramedics arrived, kneeling, working quickly. Vincent refused to let go of my hand. As they lifted me onto a stretcher, he walked beside it, face fierce with love and fear. Isabella and Luca were led away, her head high but eyes dead, him cursing until silenced. The household man sobbed as he was cuffed. The empire of lies collapsed in full view. Outside, snow had started falling again, soft, silent over Chicago's lights. Vincent climbed into the ambulance with me, still holding my hand. Sirens wailed as we pulled away from the Drake. In the dim, rocking interior, he leaned close. "I love you," he said, voice shaking. "More than anything. More than life." Tears slipped down my cheeks. Pain, relief, the overwhelming shock of being loved this fiercely by a man who'd once lived worlds above me. "I love you too," I whispered. He kissed my forehead, careful of the IV line. The wound was shallow, stitches, not life-threatening. But the moment on the marble floor had changed everything. The arrests were complete, the truth exposed, and in the wreckage, something beautiful rose. 2 hearts, once broken by betrayal and poverty, now bound unbreakable. The ambulance sped through snowy streets, toward healing, toward whatever came next, together. The ambulance lights painted the snowy streets red and blue as we raced through Chicago. October 2025's cold pressed against the windows, but inside, Vincent's hand was warm around mine, fierce, unyielding. The paramedics worked quickly. IV line, pressure bandage, monitors beeping steady. My arm throbbed where Luca's blade had sliced, but the pain felt distant compared to the storm in Vincent's eyes. He sat on the narrow bench beside the stretcher, coat discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up, blood, mine, staining his cuffs. His face was pale, jaw locked so tight I feared it would break. Guilt poured from him in waves, gnawing remorse that his enemies had touched me, violent self-hatred for the single second he hadn't been fast enough. I reached for him with my good hand. "Vincent, look at me." His gaze met mine, gray eyes wet, tormented. "I'm okay," I whispered, voice soft, trembling. "You stopped him." He shook his head once, throat working. "I should have ended this sooner, before you ever got hurt." A paramedic tried to move him back for space. Vincent didn't budge, just shifted closer, protective even now. The hospital ER was controlled chaos. Bright lights, hurried voices, curtains whipping open and closed. They wheeled me straight to Trauma Bay 3. Vincent followed, refusing to leave my side. Doctors stitched the wound. 12 careful stitches through silk and skin. Shallow, clean, no major damage. But Vincent watched every needle pass like it cut him deeper. When they finished, a nurse tried to guide him to the waiting area. He looked at her, quiet, lethal calm. "I'm staying." She backed off. They moved me to a private room, Vincent's quiet word and a flashed ID ensuring it. The difference hit me hard. Soft sheets, warm blanket, quiet instead of crowded wards I'd known when Mia was sick. Vincent pulled the chair close, took my hand again. Silence fell, heavy with everything unsaid. Then his voice, rough, broken. "I almost lost you." Tears filled my eyes. "You didn't." He leaned forward, forehead against our joined hands. Shoulders shook once, silent sob of a man who'd never allowed weakness. I stroked his hair with my free hand. "I'm here, because of you." He lifted his head. The love in his gaze, passionate, intense, all-consuming, burned brighter than any pain. "I love you," he said, voice raw. "More than power, more than anything I've ever had." The words tore through me. Shock still lingered. The poor woman who'd counted pennies for bread, now hearing this from a man who could buy cities. Tears spilled. "I love you too. So much it scares me." He rose, careful of the IV, and kissed me, gentle at first, then deeper. Passion held back for weeks now, unleashed, tempered by my injury. When he pulled away, eyes fierce, "No one hurts you again, ever." But the twist, the bold life-or-death moment, wasn't finished. News spread fast. Phones in the ER buzzed with alerts. Reporters gathered outside. Luca, in holding, had snapped completely. He'd overpowered a guard during transfer, desperate, cornered animal, stolen a service pistol, escaped. And his last words, caught on body cam, "If I go down, she goes with me." Security locked the hospital down. Vincent heard first. Phone call from a contact. His face turned stone. He stood, posture shifting to the powerful boss I'd first feared. "Stay here," he told the nurse. "Lock the door behind me." I sat up, panic rising. "No, Vincent!" He returned to my side, cupped my face. "I end this tonight, one way or another." Tears fell harder. "Don't leave me." His eyes softened, tormented. "I have to keep you safe forever." He kissed me once more, fierce, desperate, pouring everything into it. Then he was gone. I sank back, monitors beeping faster with my heart. Hours dragged. News trickled in via hushed nurse whispers. Standoff downtown. Luca cornered in an abandoned warehouse near the river, demanding Vincent in exchange for no more bloodshed. I cried quietly, terror he wouldn't return, guilt that my love had pulled him into this final danger. Midnight passed. Then the door opened softly. Vincent, coat torn, new bruises, but alive. He crossed to the bed in 3 strides, pulled me carefully into his arms. "It's over," he whispered against my hair. He surrendered when he saw he couldn't win. No shots, just me facing him down. Relief crashed over me. I clung to him, sobs shaking my thin frame. He held me tighter, own tears silent against my neck. The passion ignited then, life or death closeness unleashing what we'd held back. His lips found mine, hungry, reverent. Hands careful of bandages, but desperate in their need. We kissed like survivors, like 2 people who'd stared into loss and chosen each other anyway. When we broke apart, foreheads touching, he whispered, "Marry me, soon. Make this real forever." Shock, joy, disbelief tore through me. "Yes," I breathed. "Yes." He kissed me again, deeper, passion flaring bright. Nurses discreetly left us alone. In that hospital room, beeping monitors, snow against windows, love exploded, fierce and consuming. The poor woman who'd had nothing. The powerful man who'd almost lost everything. Now holding the only thing that mattered, each other. The twist had nearly broken us, but it forged us unbreakable. Life or death passion had ignited, and nothing would ever dim it. Weeks after the gala, the trials dismantled much of the old Moretti world. Vincent cooperated quietly, giving just enough to walk free, selling off the darkest rackets, turning others legitimate. The city whispered about the Mafia boss who'd chosen something cleaner. But I knew the truth. He'd chosen us. They released me from the hospital on a crisp morning in late October 2025. Vincent was there, waiting with a warm coat, new, soft wool in deep green. He wrapped it around my shoulders himself, fingers lingering, eyes fierce with unspoken promises. We drove not to the penthouse or any old safe house, but to a quiet lakefront home north of the city. Glass walls, sunlight pouring in, heat that worked without rattling. Mia arrived that same afternoon, brought by my sister. She ran to me first, thin arms tight around my neck, then stared wide-eyed at Vincent. He knelt to her level, gentle. "Hi, Mia. I'm Vincent. I've heard so much about you." She looked at me for reassurance. I nodded, tears already starting. Vincent opened his arms. Slowly, shyly, she stepped into them. In that moment, watching the man who'd once ruled shadows hold my daughter like she was precious, something inside me healed completely. The house became ours. Vincent filled it with careful choices, books for Mia's school, a kitchen always stocked, rooms painted soft colors. He learned her favorite meals, sat with her on homework, carried her to bed when she fell asleep on the couch. I watched him change, wealth redirected, power tempered. The torment still visited his eyes some nights, gnawing remorse for years lost to the wrong people, violent inner conflict when old associates called begging favors, but he turned them away, choosing us every time. One stormy evening in November, snow turning to sleet against the windows, Mia asleep upstairs, Vincent found me in the kitchen staring at an old photo. Me and Mia in our cramped apartment, coats on inside because the heat had failed again. He came up behind me, arms circling my waist. "You're thinking about before," he said quietly. I nodded, throat tight. "Sometimes it feels like a dream, that I woke up and everything's good." He turned me to face him, eyes burning. "It's real, and it's because of you." We kissed, slow, deep, passion that had only grown fiercer with safety, hands careful of old scars but hungry for each other. Later, in front of the fireplace, blankets around us, he spoke of the future. "I want to build something new," he said. "Investments, legitimate companies, jobs for people who need them, like you once did." I traced the line of his jaw. "You're giving away so much." He caught my hand, kissed the palm. "I'm giving it to what matters. You taught me that." Tears came again, joy now, not pain. We married quietly in December, snow soft on the lake. Just us, Mia, my sister, a few trusted friends. I wore simple white, Vincent dark suit. Mia carried flowers. Vows were personal, spoken low. "I was lost until you found me," he said, voice thick. "I promise to love you, protect you, build with you every day." I cried through mine. "You saw me when I was invisible. You gave me everything when I had nothing. I promise to love you always." Mia grinned when we kissed. Life settled into rhythm. Vincent's new ventures grew, clean businesses, scholarships for kids from struggling neighborhoods, funds for medical care like the one that saved Mia. He mentored young men who'd once walked his old path, showing them another way. I went back to school part-time, nursing classes, something I'd always wanted. Vincent watched Mia when I studied, proud and encouraging. Some nights, old shadows returned. Vincent would wake from nightmares, betrayal, the gala blade, almost losing me. I'd hold him until the shaking stopped. Other nights I woke remembering cold apartments, empty cupboards, fear for tomorrow. He'd whisper promises until I slept again. But the love between us, passionate, intense, explosive, only deepened. It crossed every divide, wealth and poverty, power and powerlessness, past pain and present joy. Love that saw no color, no status, only hearts. One spring evening, late calm outside, Mia asleep, Vincent pulled me onto the deck. Stars bright above. He wrapped a blanket around us both. "We made it," he said quietly, "from that pantry to this." I leaned into him. We did. He kissed me, slow, burning, full of everything we'd survived. The poor woman who once had nothing now had everything that mattered. The powerful man who once had everything now knew what truly counted. Redemption wasn't just walking away from darkness. It was building light with the person who'd saved your soul. Knowledge of true worth comes not from money, but from compassion. Knowledge of loyalty comes from seeing who stands beside you in the storm. Knowledge of strength comes from rising after every fall. Knowledge of love comes from giving it freely, without condition. Knowledge of life's deepest joy comes from choosing humanity over power. The lesson is clear. Wealth can buy comfort, but only love buys peace. The lesson is in recognizing the invisible among us. The lesson is that betrayal teaches us who is real. The lesson is forgiveness, not for them, but for our own hearts. The lesson is that second chances are earned through change. Education about kindness begins in small acts. Education about courage grows in facing fear. Education about gratitude comes from remembering hardship. Education about family shows it's chosen, not born. Education about happiness proves it lives in connection, not possession. If this story touched you, think about who in your life might feel unseen. Reach out, offer kindness, share love without measure. What did this story make you feel? How does it connect to moments in your own life? Please share in the comments. I read every one and love hearing the emotions from deep within your hearts. If you enjoyed this journey, please subscribe to the channel Alex Truths, like this video, and share it with someone who needs it. There are many more engaging stories waiting every day. Wishing you all good health, a joyful life, and daily peace. See you in the next video. Description: all stories on this channel are fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.